Welcome back to the Google Ads Lead Gen Show. My name is Michelle Kopp from Level 28 Media.
And my name is Dean Hua from Sachi Studio.
And for today's topic, we're going to be talking all about generative AI. So we have a few things that we're going to touch on, but the first thing that we wanted to just touch on in general is what are your general thoughts on AI and how it's going to impact the paid search industry? I'll kick it off to you, Dean.
So I didn't really know much about generative AI, and specifically, I guess right now the biggest brand is ChatGPT. I initially just was very dismissive of it just because in the marketing world there's so much hype and talk about automation. Every time I hear about automation, I kind of cringe and just ignore people. But the deeper I looked into ChatGPT and what it was capable of, the more optimistic I became. So in this video episode, I want to just talk about some of the things that it's capable of and how it can make our lives a lot easier. Yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of years ago, Google actually released I guess they called it an AI feature where they would like write your ads for you automatically and you would have to like opt out of it in order to get Google to not write these ads for you based off of like scanning your website and stuff like that. And I actually did see some of the ads that Google wrote and they did just scan the website. It wasn't anything fancy. So that's why I probably wasn't as interested in AI in terms of what I saw with what Google came out with. And then Jasper came out and then ChatGPT came out about like 6 months ago in terms of the version that really blew up and everyone went crazy over it. So once I started experimenting with that, I was really impressed, especially when it comes to ad copy and creative and leveraging it for those specific aspects. But no, I've really been impressed with where ChatGPT is taking us in terms of generative AI.
Okay. Okay. Um, so that said, do you think right now, with respect to ChatGPT, it's overrated or underrated?
I think that when it first came out, it was a little bit overrated. It was a little bit overrated, but I think at the same time, it's like everyone was trying to get in on it. They wanted to understand like how to get it to work, and a lot of people they couldn't really go beyond just asking, "Oh, help me write a headline," or "Help me really like leverage it to my advantage," because people didn't understand exactly how to use it. But now it's come to a point where if you know the right prompts to use, you can really get down and dirty and actually get, this platform to deliver something pretty amazing that's going to be able to help make a strong impact on your campaign. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like the people who think it's overrated probably don't have access to the right prompts and data that can help them like finesse what ChatGPT is capable of doing. That said, I think it's underrated in terms of what it can be in maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road. I think I think its biggest application is really I see it as more not necessarily an automation partner for me where it's going to do the work for me. I don't think we're there yet. I don't know if we'll ever get there. I think, at least for me, I look at it as more of a creativity partner, where I can sit there and enter certain prompts, and it starts to spit back various analysis and data, and it helps me understand, or it helps me look at things from a different way, especially from an
Yeah.
ad copywriting perspective. So I
Yeah,
look at it as
it's
more of a creative partner than an automation partner.
Yeah, it certainly helps a lot, especially when you're hitting writer's block. I know a lot of pay-per-click marketers in general hate writing ads. I think like
Yeah.
it's like probably like 90% of the pay-per-click marketers like, biggest nightmare is like sitting there writing headlines and descriptions. But with ChatGPT, so long are the days are where you have to really stress over finding creative ways to say things because ChatGPT can help you and it can also help you confine it to the specific character count. So you're not having to really do a ton of finessing. You'll still have to edit some of the stuff that ChatGPT is saying, and kind of make it your own. But I agree with you. I don't think that it is ever going to be a true automation partner, but more of a partner that's going to be able to help you with like creativity.
Yeah, totally agree. Um, let's talk about use cases. So where do you, if at all, where do you use ChatGPT for campaign planning?
So campaign planning, typically it would be more for like research in terms of trying to understand a client's target demographic better. I mean, of course, there's no better place to start than with your client and trying to understand their business by actually interviewing them. But if you are crunched on time and they don't have as much resources to give to you, then ChatGPT could be a really great place to start in terms of asking ChatGPT. Let's say that you have an orthodontist client in the city of Seattle, for instance, then you can actually ask ChatGPT questions about the demographics of Seattle, what type of people would typically use orthodontic services, and also keywords that are similar to that are similar to orthodontics and braces that typically the average person would be searching that is not those types of keywords. So it can help you a lot with like understanding in terms of like the psychology to a certain extent, of course. But it's been really helpful in terms of that research planning phase. Have you ever used it for research and
Yeah,
planning?
actually, I just used it actually last week for a B2B prospect. They didn't become a client just because it wasn't a good fit. But the scenario was basically it was a headhunter who had called me up, and he basically wants to use Google Ads to advertise his recruitment firm. It's a very small recruitment firm. They focus on recruiting salespeople for chemical companies. So it's a very niche audience. And I knew right off the bat that he wasn't going to get a lot of search volume. So when you don't get a lot of search volume, and when you're trying to do keyword planning, a lot of keywords just aren't going to show up. So I tried going the keyword planner route, just really couldn't find a lot. And I decided to use ChatGPT, where my prompt was something to the effect of, show me the top 20 keywords for a recruitment firm looking for, or for a recruitment firm advertising what they do for chemical companies. And it was really good. It generated a lot of different search queries, and that gave me some ideas on what to do next. But like I said, it wasn't a good fit, but that was a really good use case for ChatGPT.
Yeah, so basically potentially using it as like a keyword planner replacement to a certain extent, but then also understanding too that it might not be 100% accurate, but it could be it's something that's a good starting point. So at least you have an idea of like where to start.
Yeah.
In terms of creative, I think that this is probably where most PPC marketers are finding it to be the most useful in terms of ChatGPT. So could you share a little bit more of like how you're leveraging it for your creative processes?
Yeah, so like you said, I think a lot of media buyers being, was it left brain? Very analytical people. They don't always like writing ad copy, and with a lot of bigger agencies where media buyers are probably managing 20, 30, 40 different accounts, their brain just kind of gets fried and they don't have enough creative juice left to start writing ad copy. So in these sort of situations where the media buyer is very limited on like creative thinking bandwidth, I think ChatGPT is a great way to go where you can kind of tap into it and just start, typing in prompts and see what it'll give you back. A lot of it may not necessarily be perfect in terms of what it generates, but at least it'll give you some ideas of what direction you kind of want to go in as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think there's been so many times where I'm trying to write ad copy and I can tell you how many times my brain has been fried and trying to come up with something creative, something witty, something that also aligns with the client's brand voice. So that's another key thing is like when you're writing and you're asking ChatGPT to write you creative, it's also really important too to share with ChatGPT that's the tone and the style that you're looking for in order to get as close as possible to, let's say, a specific, a style of tone when it comes to specific brand.
Yeah, like I'll give you one use case that came up a couple of weeks ago. It's with actually a new orthodontist client of mine, and I was looking for descriptions where it would rhyme. I just wanted to try that out just for the sake of. experimenting. So my prompt was something to the effect of act like you're an orthodontist in XYZ city and generate 5 descriptions under 90 characters that rhymes. And so I'm looking at one right now where I'm using it for the actual ad copy. The description said 40 years of straightening teeth with finesse, including a smile makeover success. Right. It was kind of cute. And I'm
Yeah.
looking at the data when I put it into the responsive search ad. It's actually, in terms of impressions, it generates the second most impressions for the description area.
How about the click-through
So,
rate?
click-through rate is a little bit harder to judge just because there's so many different variations. So I don't have that data
Right.
right
Okay.
on me. But preliminary data said it wasn't too bad.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. And hopefully they'll give our listeners and viewers some ideas on what they could potentially be doing in terms of leveraging ChatGPT for ad copy. I think the probably like the a really great use case here is just telling ChatGPT to act like something, act like a copywriter, act like a copy PPC copywriter and help me write this in this type of tone, in this type of style, and then it should be able to give you some ideas. Sometimes it can take a while in terms of being able to generate it, but for the most part, it's pretty quick.
Yeah. Moving on. Do you use it at all for analysis? Because I don't. I'm still very old school, but
Yeah, well, I actually discovered from watching a YouTube video that it does, ChatGPT does have the ability to do analysis. This was several months back, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So I tried it out. Pretty much what I did was I got a table in Excel and just dumped it into ChatGPT and told ChatGPT to do an analysis. Give me an executive summary, listed in bullet points, explaining what happened month over month, and with this table. And sure enough, it gave me the analysis.
okay.
And I didn't see anything wrong with it. It did seem a little bit corporate speak, but of course, you have to probably tell it to, be a little bit more casual depending on who your audience is. Personally, that was just a test. I haven't actually personally used it for any of my clients. I just feel like it's too much like extra work to have to like, if it's already in an Excel file or in Google Ads to then like copy it and then tell ChatGPT to like really like do an analysis of it. I think that it could be really helpful, let's say for junior level people or someone in an agency that's a media buyer that probably doesn't have like as much time, that's really stretched thin. But of course, you have to treat whatever the output that ChatGPT gives you as an assistant, and you have to double check the work just in case they accidentally say something that's incorrect. So, have I used it? Yes, but is it something that I currently have built into my workflow? No.
Okay. Fair enough. And that's part of the reason why I don't use it, just because I found it just created more work for me. Whereas I could just use Data Studio, or I guess it's called Looker Studio now, but where I could use Data Studio, take a quick look at the analysis, and I could just start typing, my findings and send it off to the client. I don't, at least right now, I don't necessarily need generative AI to do the work for me.
I think what would be really interesting, and I'm sure we're not too far away from this, is being able to have the ability to connect Google Ads or Looker Studio with ChatGPT through like an API or something, or some type of integration, so then that data can easily be fed into ChatGPT so we can actually have it do some pretty amazing things for us. That would be really cool. I'm sure
Yeah.
that's pretty much on the horizon coming
Yeah, I'd
in
agree.
the
I
next
think that's
couple of
probably on the
years.
horizon. You could probably see it. You could probably see yourself using something like Zapier or whatnot
Yeah,
to
yeah.
create that integration. Moving on, what do you think are the biggest myths behind ChatGPT or generative AI?
I think like the biggest myth with ChatGPT in general is that it's accurate. Like everything that it outputs is accurate. I've actually had it give me the wrong answers for a couple things. I was testing it. For instance, a couple weeks ago, I was just checking to see if it knew the due dates for quarterly taxes. And it
Mm,
actually gave me the wrong due date. So it told me it was July 15th when it was actually supposed to be June 15th for
okay. All right.
this quarter. So yeah, that and of course I knew the right answer. I double checked it with my CPA, but
Mm,
who of course knows the tax deadlines inside and out. But yeah, I mean, that's just one example of ChatGPT giving the wrong answer. I've seen it give the wrong answers a couple times too, in other situations, especially when it comes to things where it's like more, requiring like factual answers. So I would just say be a little bit careful and don't take it as like the source of truth. Also note that, ChatGPT's only been trained up to a certain time frame, based off of the data that it's been like quote unquote studying. So it might not have the most updated information right now. Like, let's say if you were to ask it about like the Titan submersible disaster that happened, it probably wouldn't be able to give you the most accurate information on that.
because it was too recent.
Yeah, because it's too
Okay.
recent. So just, I'd say when it comes to like asking for factual stuff, be careful. I would say double check your sources. And don't trust it 100% in terms of just again, treat it like an assistant. You have to double check the work.
Okay. Yeah, I think one of the biggest myths behind ChatGPT right now is that it can do all of the work for you with the push of a button. I don't know if it'll ever really get there, but I think people who think that it's sort of a set it and forget it automation content generation tool, I think they're going to be sorely disappointed. You have to really just start trying to finesse and kind of hone in on the answers it gives you. So if you're not satisfied with the initial answer, you may have to find a way to get it to like rework itself so it gives you something much more precise or more satisfactory to your needs. Like I equate it to, if you watch Star Trek at all, in just any episode of Star Trek, the captain would sit there and ask the computer, "Hey, computer, can you do this or calculate that?" And if you watch the episode real quickly, the captain's not necessarily satisfied with the initial answer for whatever reason. So then the captain follows up with, "Hey, computer, do this based on the initial answer you gave me." So the captain may go through several prompts, if you will, before he or she finds an answer that's satisfactory to his or her needs, and then he can kind of make the decision on what to do next. So I think that's what marketers have to do is basically keep finessing it and forcing ChatGPT to give you much more refined answers.
Yeah, I agree. So as we're moving on to the next topic here, let's talk about PPC marketers and ChatGPT. Do you see ChatGPT or generative AI making our jobs obsolete as pay-per-click marketers?
No, I do not. I think that for those who are thinking that maybe you're not in a position to really add a lot of value for whatever reason, so you may want to examine that. But I'm not really worried about ChatGPT or generative AI or just AI in general making our job obsolete. I think where the future lies for what we do is really it's our job to see big picture and to design strategy, right? And maybe AI can maybe do some of the grunt work for us, but I don't ever see it coming to a point where it can do all of the work for us because you have to remember that as humans, generally speaking, we should have more experience and more context into our clients' businesses where we should be able to make those decisions. And I don't think AI will ever get to that point, or at least not in the near future.
Yeah, I think like the context piece is really key here. I know that Google is rolling out their own generative AI into the Google Ads platform, where essentially, and this is something that was announced in Google I/O a few months ago, the big conference that they had with all the big updates with where Google Ads is going, is they're rolling out generative AI features so that essentially all you'd have to do is if you're a new advertiser, open up a Google Ads account and then just type in a few things about your business and it's going to give you your ads, your keyword set, your audiences, and therefore eliminate the need for a consultant like you and me But at the same, that's what Google wants you to think. But at the same time, I've seen so many instances where Google gets it wrong in terms of not understanding the context, doesn't know the difference between different specific things in a specific industry. For instance, Google Ads thinking that home care, hospice, palliative care is literally all the same thing in
Hmm.
the elderly care space, but it's not. So, they do kind of relate to each other, but they're not all the same thing. So that's where the context is really important and understanding the client's business. And that's why people like you and me are still going to be needed so that we can guide the machine and guide the AI so that we can ultimately leverage it to our advantage. I think in terms of AI, the people that are viewing it as the enemy are probably the people that are going to go obsolete pretty quickly in terms of this
Yeah. Yeah.
industry. But if you are using AI plus your own human, your own strategy, and you bring those two together, in terms of like, an advanced strategy, then you're pretty much, set up for success in terms of, a winning approach because AI is not going to be able to do everything for you. It's going to be able to assist you to a certain extent, but it's not going to be able to think for you and it's not going to be able to communicate to your client the way that you can.
Totally agree.
Yep. So let's go ahead and talk about any AI tools on the horizon. Have you tested any tools that have come out? I know that there's Google
Midjourney.
Bard,
Oh, Google
uh,
Bard. Okay.
Jasper.
No. Yeah, I'm not much of an expert on this field. Like I've messed around with Midjourney for image generation. I really like it. I'm still doing a deep dive on that. I use Midjourney to some degree for image generation when I need something for Instagram or LinkedIn, because I create some content on there. But other than that, I don't really follow some of the other AI tools. How about yourself?
So I've actually tested Google Bard. Not too impressed right now. It's still in a very nascent phase. I think it rolled out maybe like 2 or 3 months ago. And I tried asking it for some ad copy assistance the same way that I would ask ChatGPT, the exact same prompt, and it was actually really subpar, like some of the results that it gave me. And even asked it to stay within character count, and it said, sure, we'll do this within character count, and it was still wrong. So, it's not quite there yet. But once they get it to the point of, where ChatGPT is now, and they can start integrating that with Google Ads, then I think that we might be in for something that's like a lot more useful. I actually haven't used Midjourney. I found it to be impressive based off of what I've seen. Personally, haven't used it. But I don't know, do you actually like, can you tell when an image is like AI generated? Because I can tell like with these mid-journey pictures, they have a specific look to them that kind of gives it away that it's like an AI created tool.
So I've run into some really I've been on certain Facebook groups where people have given some really good tips on how to make it look very photorealistic. So if you go with the prompts that most people are using within Midjourney, it's not going to seem very realistic. But if you follow some of these tips I've seen, where you just add in a few keywords or whatnot, it's actually pretty decent.
Okay.
So
No, that's
yeah.
awesome. All right, so I think that's pretty much it. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about in regards to ChatGPT and generative AI for this episode?
Nope, not my.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.